Alright, so we're going to look at using the Makerbot software for the FlashForge 3D printers. This will also work on the Replicator 2X that we have, but we're mostly going to focus on the FlashForge Creator Pros because that's what we have the most of, and that's what you're working with in your class. So first thing is, if you're on a school computer, it's already going to be on the computer. We're working on getting it in 01 and 03, but for right now it's at least in 09 and in 12, the additive manufacturing lab. Also working on getting it in 13 as well. But if you want, you can get this installed on your computer at home. It's a free software. So if you head to makerbot.com, go to their apps section, the Makerbot Desktop, go ahead and click on that. So it has the latest version. Just click download. Set your selection, whether you're Windows or Mac, whatever. Works on both platforms. Go ahead and hit download. Save it to your downloads and install it. It'll be finished, and then you have to go and open it up. So before I do that, I just want to point out where we got our 3D model that we're going to be printing. We're going to use this because this is a good test of how well the printer is set up and functioning. It's not a difficult part. It only takes about 20-30 minutes to print, but it's also not too easy. There's some difficulty with how small it is. So if you head to Thingiverse, it's another thing made by Makerbot. Basically has a whole bunch of STL files that you can print, like your brain, I guess, if you want. This Saber thing seems pretty neat, but the thing we're going to be looking for is the iPhone cable protector. Because of its small size and its small contact, it makes a very good test print to make sure our bed's heating up to a temperature hot enough to keep the plastic adhered throughout the print. Check our extrusion properties, those type of things. So the best way to get back to a thing file, and if you want to find this file yourself, or you will have to at least to print it, you want to look for the thing number 742415. If you type that right in that window, so I'm just going to copy it. If I enter that number in here, that's 742415. Brings up the item. I can go to it. And the file you're looking for specifically is the iPhone back. So there are other files there, but this is the one that has the part that slides on the lightning connector, which is where stuff usually breaks. But we're not worried about that too much. We're more focused on it's a very small print. It should go relatively quickly. So I've downloaded that STL already on my drive, and I have that saved. So I'm going to go and open the Makerbot software. So you go to Start menu. You can see it's already had a little button. If it doesn't for you, it's just a matter of going to All Programs, scrolling down until you see Makerbot and Makerbot Desktop. You want to click on that. That's the program we're going to run. Because this is the first time I've run this program on my computer, it's going to make some decisions for me, which isn't very helpful for us because while we do have the 5th gen, it's not hooked up, and it may not be hooked up for a while. It's not a priority. There are a lot of issues with it. And like I said, we're focusing on the FlashForge Creator Pros. So it's also asking you to sign in and create an account. You don't need to worry about that at all. That's if you were to have this set up with your printer and do some workflow type setups, or this is all the computer did was run that printer. You'd be able to play around with this more, but we're just looking to use the program to create the data to put on an SD file, SD card. So I'm going to ignore this, click on the prepare screen, and I need to change this Replicator 5th gen. So I can't have this Replicator 5th gen for my device. So I'm going to go up to Devices, select Type of Device, and I'm aiming for the Replicator Dual. That's what the FlashForge Creator Pros are, Replicator Dual. See the bed size changed. That's an important part. The dark gray area around the outside is a no-go zone. Well, technically, in the X direction, if you have the right hand nozzle, so as you look in the machine, nozzle on the right hand side, also known as nozzle 0, the left hand side is known as nozzle 1. Um, as you look at it, it technically can print off to the side here a little bit if you have the glass bed on. If you don't have the glass bed, you're restricted to the print area of that build plate. But if you have the glass bed, you can print off to the right a little bit, and with the left extruder, you can print off to the left a little bit. There's some leeway, but as far as top and bottom, there's no leeway there. If you have a part of your print even too close to that, so it's not even like if you have it right on the edge, you'll be fine. You still might over travel, basically run into the end of the travel of the y-axis, and it's going to stutter, and it's going to cause your print to shift. So once you have Replicator Dual set, it's now time to add your file. A couple different ways to do it. If you're looking at things like save, open, that's dealing with like a Makerbot type file. We're more looking to kind of import, if you will, or add a solid model. So you can either do that through the file, or you can click on this Add File button. So I'm going to go to the directory that I want. So that's an iPhone back. You can see it's this little part, not much space to it. We're going to print it as is. If we needed to, we could use these controls on the side, such as this one here. If I click on it twice, either double click, or just if I already have it open, just move between them. Notice how it says no object selected. Once I select the object, I can do some scaling. I can sit there and increase it. Now, you notice how as I'm clicking this up, my scale to doesn't change from 100%. I can type in 50, things like that, and play around that way, but just clicking on it, you're going to lose perspective, and you'll end up with a part that may not fit your application. So you want to, unless you know what you're trying to achieve, or you really don't care, try to avoid scale, just because it's something that you really don't want to mess up your tolerances. Like I said, if you don't care, it's not a big deal. But basically, this model's sized a certain way to fit the part. And if you really want the part to be a certain size and you still need to scale it, put it in SolidWorks so you can control that process and actually set some dimensions. So another thing we can do is rotate it. So I can rotate it any number of ways, and X and Y. There's buttons here for quick rotations. So we can't have it just floating in air. And there's a nice little button that says lay flat that'll automatically kind of position it so that it's flat on the bed. So obviously this is not quite what we want. We don't want to print on this back side. We want to print on this bottom. If I can get it to kind of come up a little bit on that little bottom spot there. So by using the 90-degree tools, I can rotate it so it's close. Keyword close. Kind of mess with that quite a bit. There's a little bit of a free form, but it's kind of touchy on what you actually do. Or if I was really smart, I'd actually just hit reset rotation. That might help. Say lay flat, and that'll actually automatically bring it so that the bottom of the part is on the bottom of the bed. So reset rotation will set it to originally what you had it as. Move, you can move the part around. So kind of depends on what angle you're looking at it in. You can limit it to X, Y, but you can also move it up and down in Z, depending on what you're trying to do. If it's off the platform, you can also say stay on platform. Then you can center it within the bed, if that's what you want to do. The view is just how to change the different views to look at. For the most part, you have the same controls or similar controls as SolidWorks. The left click button allows you to rotate around. Scroll wheel zooms in and out, and if you click the scroll wheel, that's what allows you to pan. Now, if I don't want to move the part at all, I can click off into space, and I no longer have it selected. I can't really do much with actually modifying it. The last thing I want to show you before we get into parameters is this info area. Right now it's set to the right extruder. This is how I would say, hey, I want it actually from the left extruder, which is red, for a different material. Or if I had multiple pieces, I could select, hey, one left, one right, and I can have a dual extrusion print. For right now, we're just going to use the right extruder. So we'll click off that. So we're going to go to settings. One of the new things that was improved with the new version of Makerbot is we're not hamstringed in the settings area. It used to be a notepad file that was really difficult to use. Now we have a decent quick settings. You know, I can go, okay, I want PLA, not Makerbot, or ABS. Left doesn't really matter because I'm not using it, but it didn't adjust the temperatures. Normally PLA, I think the red stuff we were going around 210, and a build temperature of 65 degrees. So you can set those real quick. You know, whether you want raft or support, what quality, you know, whether you have a high step over with low quality, or you have high quality where you have a smaller step over, or step down, I should say. It basically controls your layer height. If you watch your layer height here, it should change. You know, high is 10 or 100 microns, where low is 300 microns. We'll keep it at standard for now. We also have the number of shells. If we look at our part in this window, we can see that it has its exterior casing that we're looking at, that's solid. Well, the shells is how many layers of plastic do I put on the outside layer before I start filling stuff in. On the small part, it's going to very quickly change over to just being 100% infill because there's not a lot of empty space. So we're going to go ahead and just leave it at 2, leave it at 10%. Again, it's already pretty small and dense. I turned off raft. Raft is it prints a little doodad around the base of the part to help increase surface area. It doesn't always serve its purpose the best. In fact, I consider it a waste of plastic. There has been 1 or 2 times where I've had to use a raft because my supports weren't sticking. Usually it's something, if your part's not sticking, use a raft. But it's really, a lot of times it's just a band-aid. You know, how can I, if my part's not sticking, do I have my bed temperature high enough? Do I have a coating down to help it adhere? You know, you should be solving the problem of why is my part not sticking, rather than just saying, oh, I'm just going to waste some material and print a larger surface area. So there's been a couple times where I've had to, mostly because the supports, they don't automatically print with a large surface area. They just kind of print lines. So if you are building some tall supports, if you don't have a raft, there's nothing to really tie them to anything else, at least in Makerware. If you use the Simplify 3D program, it doesn't have that problem because of how it designs the supports. So it's just something, try to avoid the raft at all, if all possible, because it's literally just a waste of material. So make sure you have that unchecked. And then there are some times where you need support. In our case, we don't need it because of how this is oriented, but if we need support, we could check that. So that's the quick settings. So now my settings are set. I can go to preview. It's going to generate the code. This can take a while. I mean, this is just a small little part. You can imagine bigger parts. You might have to walk away for a half hour and come back and hope it didn't crash. It's one of the downsides about Makerware is it takes a significant amount of time. So again, using my controls for zooming and panning around, I can use this little bar on the side to change my layer height, so I can see what is actually happening at the different layers. So Just kind of get an idea of what it looks like as it's printing. So it gives it about a 24-minute runtime, and that's mostly because it's small enough where it has to start slowing down and printing slower at the top here, so we don't get too much heat put into it. So that's about it for the preview. I could go right into export using this button. I'm going to hit close. If I had it plugged in, you could click the print button, but another way to get to the export file is this export print file. And then you basically find a place to save it. So in this case, I'm just going to throw it on my desktop, or you can throw it right on an SD card. And it saves as a .x3g. That's the magic file for the FlashForge Creator Pros. And we do have the Sailfish firmware 7.0. Actually, we have a later version of it. So we're going to use what it defaults to. We don't have to really change much. So we'll leave that there. We'll say save. At the end, it takes a little while to save it sometimes. I had turned supports on, but they didn't actually develop anything because we didn't meet any of the criteria to create it. So it didn't really change anything. I could go back and look at the print preview if I had any questions. Otherwise, I hit OK. And I should be able to look at my desktop, and there's my X3G. So now it's just a matter of going down to the machine and running the part.